We were
Sorry.
muted.
Hi.
Hey, y'all, we were
Hello.
muted.
How y'all doing?
How y'all doing?
Welcome to Becoming One Flesh.
Yes, yes.
Joseph and Yolanda. Thank you all so much for joining us. Um,
How you doing tonight?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I was wasn't too rested, but I got a chance to get me a little sleep, so I feel a little better now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got it in.
you
Yeah,
did
yeah,
a good job.
yeah. I told you I wasn't going to sleep, but you know how that stuff normally go. I went on in there anyway. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's good to see y'all today, and thank you
Yes.
for coming in and joining with us.
Mhm.
And what are we talking about tonight, you said? Healing a marriage hurt, what's that? By addiction. Wow. Okay.
You got like you shop.
Yeah, I didn't know what we were talking about tonight. I mean,
Yes, you did.
yeah, yeah. Let me ask you a question. You know, before we even go forward, what gave or what should give a spouse the strength to heal by that hurt?
uh, just it's so important to have God's perspective on your spouse. Is because sometimes we get so blinded by what's wrong and
Mm,
what they're not doing, what's not going right, what their struggles are. We get sometimes just blinded with that, and we are not looking at who they are as a person and who God has called them to be, or who they are. Period. We don't see that. Sometimes the negative can overshadow the positive. So it's like we have to have God's perspective and knowing that everyone has different things in their life. They
mm-hmm.
have issues, we have weaknesses, we have all kind of things going on. So you don't really know how each other's going to handle those things.
Wow.
So like I said, it's just about having a right perspective and being willing to give grace and knowing that um, we've done stuff ourselves, and it's like, what would I do? How would I want to be treated if I was in your shoes? So that's kind of
So
I
that's
look
how
at
you
it.
find strength, you think? Looking at it from a different perspective?
Like I said, being able to see through God's eyes, see the person who they are, not so much what they're doing wrong, but to see where they are, and then you have to also know what's in operation as well. You have to know what things are causing the spouse to do what they do. Where is it coming from? What's the root cause of it? And then kind of go from there.
The reason why I asked you that was because, and I'll be transparent. I'm not going to label on it now. So, but I had a surgery replacement for my shoulder. What do you call it? Reverse shoulder
Mm-hmm.
surgery. Back in that was in 21. I think it was in 21,
I think so.
January
Yeah.
11th, 2021, and it prescribes what's it called that stuff, Oxycontin.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, it was cool because it was helping with the pain, but I didn't know that stuff was that addictive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, matter of fact, Apostle Snooks told me, he said, "Man, be careful with that." I said, "Well, I got it. You know, I'm not. You know how men are. Sometimes I got it." And over a period of time, I found myself not looking at it for the pain,
Mm-hmm.
but because I've been taking it so long, my body began to desire. So before I knew it, I had a little slight addiction to that stuff, and it caused you to make bad decisions and all that craziness. You know, yet I can say this here. You know, you after you had an understanding of what was going on, you know, you didn't desert me. You know, you didn't say leave me. I guess that's a good word. But you kind of you understood. You know, not that you agreed, but that you understood, and we were able to get through that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I look back at that stuff that even though it was for a good purpose to help the pain from the shoulder, but after a period of time, because it kept giving that stuff to me, after a period of time, my physical body, it was no more about the pain, but it was about, you know, enjoying not so much enjoying, but being able to function, you know, and you find yourself, like I said, making bad decisions, but, even after that, and I want to say this here, because we talked about it, that was yesterday, or maybe this morning, I don't know, but there are so many different types of addiction, you know, that a man or a woman, or a husband or a wife, however you want to label it, that go through in life that there hasn't really been deliverance from. Anytime, a lot of times when people say addiction, first thing they think about is drugs and alcohol. But there are so many other things, pornography, perversion, you could be addicted to food. You could be addicted to a lot of stuff, and a lot. I think it's a lot of people don't fully understand. Well, a lot of spouses don't fully understand, but that any addiction that you have within your marriage is a hindrance to your marriage, both male and female.
Yeah.
But God has to give you the grace that is necessary to stand in the gap, to intercede, to do the things that require. As a matter of fact, to be confrontational with your spouse about that stuff, because if we don't, then we'll continue to allow that spirit or that demon to continue to control, and it can really destroy a marriage, because addiction is based on selfishness, it's based on lustfulness, it's based on all kind of stuff. And if we don't attack it at the root, then we can find ourselves, matter of fact, our marriages, like I said, being destroyed. So it takes a spouse that I guess I can use the word understanding, but a spouse that is rooted themselves. Because if you aren't, then like you said earlier, you'll look at it from your own natural carnal eyes and allow that thing to bring division in your marriage.
Yes.
But when you look at it from the eyes of God, then you can your perspective change. You can kind of do the warfare that is necessary to not only save your marriage, but to save yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know one thing, I've taught, I think I've mentioned this from the book, A More Excellent Way by Henry W. Wright. I think it's Henry Wright. I think I taught on that book before, and it gives basically the root spiritual cause to a lot of different ailments in the body. And one thing it said about addiction, that the root of addiction is rooted in the need to be loved. That sometimes those that may not receive love or have been loved properly, then they find their love in those things that they're addicted to, or they find their acceptance or their belonging in those things. So I know that's one of the causes. Not saying that's the only cause,
right,
but that can be one of the causes for addiction. And like you said, you have to be willing to confront that. You have to be willing to say something, because sometimes we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to say anything and this and that, but you have to, because you can't continue to let things happen and you don't say anything. And then you will go and complain about it, but then you won't say anything to the source. And so you have to be willing to confront them and let them know, hey, I know what's going on. I know what you're doing. I'm asking you so I can try to help you, or we can try to figure out what needs to be done. And then another thing that goes along with addictions as well is a lying spirit.
Yes, deception.
Yeah. Because it's done out of fear. It's done out of rejection. It's done out of all that. So, those are the things that goes along with that. But as we said, you have to be willing to work through it. It's not the easiest thing to work through, but you have to be willing to work through it. And then the person that has the problem has to be willing to be honest and to come clean about everything, because God knew what it took for you to get over that stuff. He knew what it took. And sometimes we want to interfere with what the Lord is doing. We'll pray about it, and we want to run interference because we don't want to see them hurt. We don't want to see them this and that. But we have to allow God to do what needs to be done in order for them to be healed. So many times we have to love them enough to allow them to be chastened of the Lord, I guess you can say, or whatever needs to be done. It's because if that's what you're asking him to do, you have to allow him to do things that he do it the way he wants it to be done. And then that was how you received your deliverance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was necessary,
Yeah. But like I said before, a lot of times when we talk about addiction, we only look at drugs and alcohol. But there's so many other things. I mean, you can be addicted to many things. You can be addicted to, and when we talk about that, that's the only thing that we have tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only thing that we see. But like I said, you could be addicted to food. You could be addicted to anything, you know. So how do you fight the battle of addiction? Even to the things that may not be drugs, alcohol, and all that other stuff, but the other things like we were talking the other day, the small foxes that spoil the vine. How do we fight those things? How do we allow our spouses to have the liberty to confront us without being brash or without being confrontational, but allow our spouses to assist us and help us? Because addiction to anything, you need help. I remember when I was a counselor for batterers intervention, we were talking about domestic violence, and I can remember a lot of times that even though it was domestic violence, the wife became addicted to the violence. So she wouldn't, even though it was painful to her, she wouldn't leave. She would stay right there and deal with it instead of being confrontational and destroy it. Because like I said, I counsel a lot of people in that area, and I was like, well, why do they stay? Why do they, settle? Why do they say, well, I guess this is what we got going on, and I don't want anything to happen to them. Instead of being confrontational to that, to combat that thing, you still stay. And those kind of things that we have to look at, because I think it's even though it's spiritual, it's psychological as well. Our mindset is that, well, I'd rather have this than to have that. And the bottom line is that I'd rather have that than to have this. And like I said, with you had to look at me through the eyes of God and not through the eyes of Yolanda. Because if you look at me through the eyes of Yolanda, we wouldn't even be here right now. But you allowed the Lord to deal with you, because a lot of times people blame addiction on other people. I wouldn't have done this if you wouldn't have did this and that. I wouldn't know. That's a lie from the pit of hell. That's not true. Addicted individuals, have to, and regardless of what you're addicted to, I'm not talking about drugs, alcohol, or whatever it is that you're addicted to. You have to see the selfishness in it. You have to see that what you're doing is not only just harmful to you, but it's harmful also to the individual. It's harmful to your spouse, and you don't give them the liberty, to do the things that's necessary in the marriage to save it, because now you come up with excuses. Now you come up with lies. Now you come up with deception, like you were saying. Now you come up with all that other crazy stuff, and expect your spouse to accept it. And that's not acceptable. We have to really dig into this thing, from a psychological place and from a spiritual place, whereas we can combat those things, because it's really carnal. It's really a fleshly desire.
Well, why did you find that those men were being abusive?
A lot of times it had to do with other things. They had to deal with stuff that they dealt with in their past, or their parents, or whatever else, or what they'd seen, or what they were addicted to. Addicted. You can be addicted to ignorance. because this is what they thought manhood was, and not only just the man, but there were women also that abused their husbands.
That is true. That is so true.
So
you only see one side.
Yeah, you
it
only
does
see
happen.
one side.
Yeah.
And they were addicted to the violence. They were addicted to doing what they did. And what happens is that, and this is the crazy part about it, baby, is that when you accept their addiction without being confrontational to their addiction, then you become addicted too.
You do.
You know, you become what they call it, a co-conspirator to the addiction that is being happening in your marriage. And because you are afraid, like you said earlier, because you are afraid to lose, or because you're afraid to deal with it wholeheartedly, now you succumb to that stuff and you think it's all right. Because I mean, we've seen this here. We've seen a lot of people that have been addicted to, like I said, you can be addicted to food. Gluttony is an addiction. All kind of stuff, babe.
Social media
is an addiction. Like I said, pornography and perversion. You can become addicted to that stuff, but you know what? Because it caters to the flesh. All addictions cater to the flesh. And until you do, like you said, until you look at it from perspective from God's eyes, you can't combat that stuff. You'll settle. Oh well,
a piece of man is better than no man.
Yeah. But the piece you got ain't yours because it's addicted to something. And same thing with females too. I mean, because we got women that are addicted to stuff and all of that stuff. Yes. And a lot of times people don't realize that their addictions affect their children.
Oh yes, Lord, it does. Oh my gosh.
And because it's even though it's fleshly, it's if you mind the things of the flesh, then you won't mind the things of the spirit. Yeah. So therefore now you got a fleshly mind that you pass spiritual things on down to your children. You pass spiritual things on down to your spouse, and you can look down the generations after generation. You say, well, dog, his daddy was like that, or his mama was like that. They did the very same thing. It's because you pass those things down because they're spiritual things. Yeah. So we have to combat them. I mean, a lot of times we was talking the other day, and I never thought about that, was that even with our lives when we talk to each other, well, we just pray about it. No, sometimes you have to confront it.
You do have to. That's a part of spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll pray about it. The Lord is going to. Hey, he said, I gave you authority, so you handle that.
Yeah.
I gave you dominion, so you handle that. You waiting on me to do something that I gave you authority to do. But because we've been so inundated with false doctrine and all that other stuff, we sit back and we allow those things to happen. But again, there is healing. There is healing. And we live in witnesses. There is healing. But we have to be willing and obedient to receive the correction and receive what is necessary that healing can come. And unless you're willing to do that, then maybe 4, 5, 6 years down the line, you find yourself right back in the same place. You say, well, how the hell did we get back here? Because we didn't do the maintenance that was necessary. We didn't confront the things that was necessary. We didn't handle the things that was necessary. We didn't start from a healthy place anymore. We didn't what the word repentance means, what? To change your mind. We a lot of folks think repentance means they say to turn around. Hey, you can turn around if your mind ain't changed. You still thinking the same way, then you're gonna still have the same problems in your marriage. So in order to heal the hurt, there has to be a change of mindset. There has to be confrontation. Yeah. There has to be a discipline that is created. Fasting. Because you're going to have to put that flesh to rest. You're going to have to trust God. You're going to have to trust your spouse. Because when we talk about unconditional love, we can talk about unconditional love, but are you willing to unconditionally love your spouse?
And then another thing is, is the importance of being honest and being upfront on both ends.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, they don't tell the truth, then it's like you have to really be willing to bear it all and just say, yes, this is what happened. This is what I have a problem with. This, that, and the third. Why do you think it's hard for some men? I ain't saying all, some, to be honest with their wives about different things they struggle with?
Pride, because we've been taught a man ain't supposed to cry. A man is supposed to do this here. A man is supposed to do that. A man is what? Because men, a lot of times, men eternalize stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And even though they may love their spouse, they may trust their spouse, men have been taught you're a man. But then what is a man? You know what I'm saying? Whereas women may be a little more emotional concerning things, and they look at stuff from a different perspective. But we men, not all men, but men have been taught, I think we talked about this one time before. If a little girl and a little boy fall down the steps at the same time, and the little girl start crying and the little boy start crying, the first thing they tell him, man up, don't you ain't supposed to be crying, man up. Like you don't have emotions. Man up. But it's all right for the little girl to cry, but it's not all right for the man to cry. Yeah. So when things are painful and hurtful unto us, you know what we do? We man up, even though we're in pain. And it's not that we don't trust our spouses, it's that we've been taught stuff that is so contrary, because we still human beings, we still have desires, we still have emotions. There are things that hurt us. I mean, we still have thoughts that hurt us. We still have issues, but because we've been taught this stuff, that's not a man. A man is supposed to be able to take it. Look, that's why, baby, and I'll say this here now. I mean, and my wife can be a witness to this. I cry quick. Hey, I ain't ashamed. I ain't ashamed if something hurts me or bothers me, or even if something that I become sympathetic to, I will cry. Because I understand and know that God made me that way. He made us with emotions.
That's right.
And then but they tell women, oh well, hey, if a man cry, he weak. I ain't weak at all.
Not at all.
You see? But the emotions that I have and the things that I have, I'm going to display it to my wife, because I've learned through the course of our relationship and the course of our marriage that I can be open and honest with her. Instead of, because a lot of times you ask me, hey, what's wrong? Oh, I'm but something ain't right. What's wrong? Then we can talk. But then what's wrong? Ain't nothing, everything all right? And before you know it, all heck break loose, because I wasn't able to be honest, because I'm holding my feelings in, and that's a lot of men do that stuff, and they hide stuff from their wives, they hide stuff from their spouses, trying to pretend to be this. And hey, baby, and I'll say this here to everybody, I ain't trying to be what's that dude, the macho man. I'm not trying to be that. I want God to reveal Himself in me, the way as I can reveal myself to my wife.
Amen.
Let me ask you another question too. I mean, we're just talking. Why is it that women see men as being weak when they display themselves?
Maybe because that's something that they didn't see growing up. It's something they didn't see growing up. And I know, like, I can say for me, for instance, the way my dad is, I say was, because that's what he thought. I believe he thought back then when I was a child. He's still living, but I'm just saying was. He didn't think that showing emotions was a good thing. And he had 2 girls and a son. He didn't think that was a good thing, crying and being sensitive. It wasn't a plus in his book. Okay. So then sometimes some women are taught that, you won't ever you won't ever show a man how you feel, or you won't ever let him see you cry. I don't know where we get all this foolishness from. And that's why there's so many angry, bitter women and men in the world, because we were taught, or we were told by Mima, Papa, and all of them other ones, that you're not supposed to show a man your emotion. You don't give him everything. You give him 10%. You don't give a man all of what you got. You give him 90 and keep 10. And I'm like, what is we doing, an offering? I'm like, what are we doing?
So we're doing an offering.
I'm like, where does that stuff come from? And so sometimes being emotional is looked at as I guess a bad thing when it comes to men for some reason it's because a lot of women aren't used to seeing it. And then a lot of them have been, thinking that a man showing that means that they're weak, which it really doesn't. And to me, I would rather for my husband to show emotion than for him not to show any. Because at least I know if I talk to him about something, if something's bothering me or something happened, I want my husband to be able to be sympathetic. Not only with me, but with other people. And then he wants me to be sympathetic, not only with him and with other people. So I want somebody that have emotions. I don't want no rock hard dude all the time around here beating his chest and carrying on. And he got all these health issues because he doesn't know how to express his emotions. Because whatever you don't let out, it's gonna reside on the inside of you, and you can best believe you're gonna begin to see it in your health. The arthritis gonna show up, and all this other stuff gonna happen because we're so busy trying to be hard, and I don't know where we got that from, but we're so busy trying to be hard that we're not being real. And so that's why I believe some women, may see men as that because that's not something they're used to seeing, and then for some reason we equate crying to weakness when crying is a necessary part of life. It's life. God made us with these emotions.
It's a cleansing.
Yeah, it cleanses you and it heals you and it causes you to relieve stress. So I never saw, what the problem was or whatever. But like I said, some women are taught to be hard, and so they look at a man as being soft. If the man cry, but he always crying, he crying. I'd rather that than for him to be putting his hands on me.
Oh, I'll never do
no,
that.
I'm not.
Oh.
Just an example. I'm just saying. I would rather for him to show his emotion that way than for him to take it out on me with his words. I would rather for him to say something to me, for him to go out there and be running the street. I would rather see him cry than all that other stuff. And that's something that we need to welcome our husbands doing. We need to, encourage them to tell us how they feel about things. Even if let's say they don't cry, because some women probably never seen their husband cry, but I promise you they probably do. But they only cry maybe in private. And I can remember the one time I saw my daddy cry was, now I was living in Augusta, and his family had some land, and some land they didn't know about, and so they ended up calling all of the family, his siblings that were living, and they divvied up the money from the land. And he called me when I was in Augusta. He called me and told me that he had some money for me, and where I was from in Augusta was only about an hour and a half, something like that. So I met him in Beach Island, South Carolina. I met him there, and he gave me, it was $500, and Lord knows I needed that money. You hear me? Because I was on my own. I was divorced. I was struggling, and I was so grateful for that money. And when he gave me the money, I sat in the car with him. We were at the gas station. I sat in the car with him, and I said, "Well, Daddy, can I pray for you?" And he was like, "Yeah, you could pray for me." And when I prayed for him, he had tears I have never in my entire life. And I think I was in my 30s then. That was my first time ever seeing my daddy cry tears. And I was so shocked because I said, I didn't think his tear ducts worked because we never saw him show that kind of emotion. And when he did that, it touched my heart. I said, I didn't see him any different. I didn't see my daddy as weak. I didn't see him as a punk. I saw him as a human.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is so beautiful and I don't take no, credit on the prayer because I just pray what was in my heart, but I don't take credit for that. But obviously God touched his heart through the prayer, and that meant a lot to me. I'll never forget that as long as I live. And so, as I said, we just have to encourage our husbands, sons, grandchildren, encourage them to show their emotion, because then we wonder why we got so many angry black people. I ain't trying to be prejudiced, but I'm being honest. We wonder why people be taking each other's lives and people be killing their girlfriends and all that. They don't know. Most of them don't know how to handle their emotions because they were never taught how to have emotions, and they were never taught that emotions are a part of their human being. That's who they are. That's who they were created to be. And so that's something that we definitely, as a people, and I ain't trying to make this a black and white thing, but I'm just saying that's something as a people that we have to work on. Allowing our husbands and our sons and grandsons and grandchildren, allowing them to be human. And, letting them know that it's okay for them to be emotional and to show their emotions.
Because when you don't, then there's secrecy. Whereas you not able to heal from whatever they may be going through. Because I have to be transparent. when I was going through what I was going through, I was so ashamed of it.
Mhm.
And even though I loved you, God knows I love you, and trusted you, I couldn't tell you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because out of fear that you would look at me differently.
Mhm.
So I tried to fight the battle and try to fight the battle, and like you said, deception and this and that, you know. But God had to place what He needed to place in you, and you had to bring about what needed to be done.
Mhm.
To whereas we both can heal from the hurt,
Mhm.
because we both were hurt. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real about it.
Yeah.
There's no way that you could be married to a person and not both of you experience the hurt.
Mhm.
I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you won.
Mhm. That's right.
You know, and that's the key.
Mhm.
You know, so uh, only thing I'm saying today, only thing we're saying today, is that allow whatever the addiction may be, whatever it is that your spouse may be going through, allow the voice of God to be louder than yours.
Mhm. That's it. That's it. And continue to pray, because you'll know when something's not right.
Yeah.
You'll know, because you know your spouse. You'll know. You'll see. You'll know when things aren't right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we just have to continue that intimacy and that relationship with the Lord, and He'll give you direction on what to do and how to do it. It's not the easiest thing to walk through. For either one of us, it wasn't easy, because we had to spend time apart in order for the healing to take place. But it was necessary.
Yeah.
You know, it had to happen that way, and we were grateful for it.
Oh yeah.
Because when we came back together, then we were able to talk about everything, how we felt. Well, what happened with this? And we went over everything. I said, well, what about this time? You said, yeah, it was because of that. I said, I thought so. Okay, and what about that? You said, yeah, it was that. We went back over everything, and that helped me to get closure with it. That helped me to understand, for one, I wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
I knew I saw what I saw. But then the second part, it just helped me to realize what all he was going through as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to look at where he was coming from, as well. And we were able to, by the grace of God, we were able to get through it. So we just want to encourage you all, if you're going through something like this and you have a spouse that may be addicted, or whatever the case may be, or whatever they're addicted to, just know that there is healing available for them. Oh, yeah. There is healing. Healing can happen. You can get help. If you have to get a counselor, you do that. There is nothing wrong with that. Yeah. If whatever you have to do, you can do in your strength, that is, or whatever the Lord directs you to do, that's what you do. But what you can't do is so much blame yourself, because sometimes we'll want to take the, what I should have, I could have. Yeah. It's not really the time to really point fingers. Yeah, really. So it's just really a time to really, ask the Lord to show you, okay, what do you want me to do from here? How do we get past this? Can you help me heal my heart? Help me to trust again, help me to love again, and different things like that. And He will do that. Mm-hmm. He will do it, and it will take time. It's not an overnight thing. You can't expect them to change in 5 minutes. It will take time. But when you allow God to do it His way, then the change will be permanent and it'll be effective. Amen. Vice you trying to do it your way, to appease yourself or to appease your fears or your worry or your anxiety or whatever the case may be. So that's how we got through it, was through understanding, love, time, patience, fasting, prayer, talking, confrontation, being honest, exposure. All of that stuff had to happen for us to heal. And so now, even if we happen to think about something and bring it up, we talk about it like it's nothing now, really. Because we were able to talk about all of it, from A to Z. We talked about all of it. Like, this is what happened, that, why, this and that. And that was helpful to help us heal, because we were able to be honest with each other and go and, where we went wrong, admit we went wrong there, and just continue to go forward. Amen. So that's the advice or encouragement we have for you all. You have anything?
One thing I want to say is that on Saturday, what time? 11 o'clock Central Standard Time, my wife has her broadcast. It costs me everything. Mm-hmm. Please join in, like and share. And then on Sunday, we have Kingdom Principle Ministries at 6:30 Central Standard Time. Please come in to where as we expound on the Word of God.
Yes.
On Wednesdays, the fourth Wednesday, right?
Fourth Wednesday of every month.
The fourth Wednesday of every month, Wifey Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
My wife has that as well. And yesterday, woo! Hey, if you haven't seen it, please go. And it's on Becoming One Flesh. If you haven't seen it, please go back and look at it and ask and share it with somebody, because she dropped some nuggets yesterday. I had to tell her this morning. When I got up this morning to pray, I said, let me look at this thing again. And she dropped some nuggets from her heart, you know, and wives and those that are expecting to be wives
Yes.
need to kind of think about those things and look at those things. What else, babe? That's about it.
That's it.
That's about it. And we thank you all for joining.
Yes.
We
God
love
bless
you. God bless you. And
God bless you, Prophetess Elena.
hey, Prophetess
And
Elena.
everybody else that comes on and who will watch the replay. God bless you guys.
Yes, yes. We love you.
Love you. Alexis, hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah.
Love you guys. We will see y'all next time.
Bye-bye.